like I said, guys, we'll give it a few minutes just for people to come on, and then we'll crack on. How were your days, boys? All right?
Yeah, good. Well, I'm currently recovering out still, so.
Oh yeah. How is recovery going? Obviously, we've been texting. I've checked in you every now and then.
Yeah, to be fair, mate, it's been a nightmare. Like the first week, the pain was just ridiculous, and then like all the tablets I were on were just doing everything to me, knocking me out, making me feel sick, just horrible stuff. And then last week was all right. I had my bandage taken off, and it looked like a cow's hoof. And then
it's important to highlight here we're talking about your foot, right? Yeah, go on, mate.
Then, like this week, since I've had the bandage taken off, my foot's just been really loose. So my foot's just been really, really loose, and there's no like support underneath it or anything like that. So it's just hurting.
Yeah.
You've been able to walk on it or no? I take it no.
Nope. I've got a healed walker which I can just hobble around on. I've got crutches because I'm a bit like Bambi, just falling over all the time if I don't have them. But like the pain's just awkward at the minute. It's like you know when you need like a toe to crack or like a one of your bones just to crack.
Yeah.
It's like that, but I can't do it because the toe's broken.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to get it. I just have to get it comfy, like it's just out in front of me at the minute. It's just like elevated up.
Yeah, lots of attention. That's the most important thing.
What's that?
Are you getting lots of attention?
I should be getting more, to be honest.
Hopefully your missus isn't in earshot, mate. So
she hear everything, don't they?
Yeah, she's not even in the flat or a house, and she'll be able to tell what you're saying.
Yeah.
We'll just give it one more minute, guys. People are trickling in, so it's always.
I'm just going to move my setup just a little bit closer to the wall because I reckon I'll get better internet connection there.
Thanks for the router.
How about you, Frank? How's your day been?
Yeah, we're busy at work at the moment. We've got a new project starting, so everything's a bit mental.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, I've just come back from. I went on a retreat for bank holiday weekend, so it was like ice bath, saunas, gong bath, all of that sort of jazz. It was really, really nice. So yeah, coming back to work was a bit of a struggle this week, but it's been all right.
What's a gong bath?
Basically like a bath, but with someone with a gong going in the background.
Right, it is as simple as it sounds. I had this image of like this bath made of brass, and they're just bonging it while you're in it.
It didn't actually do anything for me, but yeah, a bit of yoga as well. It was beautiful. It was really, really nice.
Oh, that's amazing.
Feel nice and refreshed.
Yeah, and also, do you know your yoga moves?
Do I?
Do you know most?
So I know some.
Do you know the crow?
No.
No. So it turns out I can do the crow, which is basically like putting your arms in the middle of your legs and then just standing on your hands. Sounds a bit. Yeah.
You just
maybe see how much time we've got left.
We can have a demo at the end.
See how much time we've got left. I'll do it for you.
Right, we better crack on. Right, first of all, everyone that's watching has joined us today. Thanks for coming so much. And anyone that's listening, this is obviously pre-recorded as well, or going to be. Thanks for coming. Today's panel is Behind the Brave Face, a men's panel about mental health and infertility or fertility. Before we get going, I'm just going to read a quick disclaimer. So we just crack on. So some of the topics today we're going to be discussing are very emotional, could potentially be triggering. Today's conversation is about guidance, support, but does not replace professional advice and support. So if anything triggers you, or if you feel like you need additional support, please find it professionally. You can, if you're not sure where to go straight to your GP. But also there's other ways of finding it. But speaking to your GP is probably the best bet. They'll be able to direct you straight into the appropriate support. There we go. So if you've got any questions today, please just put them into the chat box down the bottom, and towards the end we'll fire on to the guys, or I'll answer them as well. If you've got a particular question that you want to ask someone individually, just put their name and then the question, so then I know where to direct it. Without further ado, let's crack on. So today we are joined by Josh and Frank. I'm really privileged to have these guys on. They're doing fantastic work in this field, and we're also privileged to have them as patient ambassadors for Nexus. And me and Ciaran are both so grateful to them. So welcome, guys. Thanks for being here. Let's start right at the beginning. Let's start with Josh. I'm going to ask you the first question, and then Frank, if you could also answer it as well afterwards. Let's go right back to the beginning, Josh. People that don't know you, can you give us a brief outline of your experience of male fertility or infertility, and how you felt when you first got that diagnosis?
Yes, I will keep it brief because so, you know, you can start talking a lot about it, especially if you've been in it a long time like myself. But in 2020, me and my wife trying to conceive. We got married in 2019, so naturally, you know, trying to conceive. But nothing was happening. We understood that my wife had polycystic ovaries, so we were fast tracked through the system after a few months of like I said, nothing happening. After going through all the relevant tests within the fertility clinic, I was told that I had extremely low sperm count, and they discussed doing further semen analysis to basically try and get enough to freeze. So I went through with the semen analysis where they basically had nothing to work with, and then it was discussed that we try a surgical sperm retrieval just to give me the best chance of finding anything to work with. 6 months after that discussion, found out I was missed off a list for the referral, which was obviously really, really frustrating. So we decided to look at the private options. So we went to Manchester Spire, where I've seen a urologist. He had a check of everything. And then he put me onto clomiphene just to try and boost testosterone, just to give me a bit more, I suppose, hope, chance of trying to find something. 3 months on that. I then did another semen analysis where, again, the same result. There was nothing to work with. Chased up the referral for the surgical sperm retrieval. Got a date through for August 23. But then in May 23, I got a call from the fertility doctor basically saying, has anyone ever discussed your genetic test results with you, your blood tests, which I did about 18 months before. And at that point, I knew it wasn't good news. Why would they ever say anything like that if it wasn't? Basically told that I had a mosaic pattern. So this was from a genetics counsellor. Told that I had a mosaic pattern within my chromosomes where part of my Y chromosome was missing. Part of it was mirrored. And basically that if there was no sperm found, that could be a factor of why there's nothing there. And then in August 23, I had the micro-TZ operation and found that there was nothing there, and that we had to look at the donor conception route. So first thoughts going through all that, I mean, even from the first part of when, you know, you're told that you've got extremely low sperm count, it's like, what? Like, me? How? What? Like, I've lived quite a healthy-ish lifestyle, always been quite active. And it's, you know, feel really guilty saying this, but you think, don't you, like, kind of automatically you think it's a female issue. Never did I expect to find or to be told that was going to be, you know, that you're the issue, Josh. So from the start, you know, really angry, really frustrated. A lot of questions about, have I done something wrong in my life when I was younger? I haven't, or anything I could think of. And then to come in nearly 3 years later, finding results after an operation like that, just devastated. The most devastating news that I've had to date. Just sadness, just pure sadness. Yeah. So we've been, me me and my wife have been going through donor conception since that operation. So yeah, that's where we're at the minute.
Yeah, I think exactly. I remember feeling that sadness.
Yeah,
it was. There's no other way to really describe it at some points, is there? Like, just sad, because you're still processing everything, and how else do you describe it? But just sadness. You did mention the anger and frustration and things like that. How did you feel? Because a lot of conversations that I've had with men, often their diagnosis is quite unique, like yours. How did you feel about? Did you ever think, am I the only one that has this? Were you given any more additional information around the condition, or were you kind of diagnosed and left to it? And then how did you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, at the start, I knew, I suppose through the whole process, me and my wife knew no other couple that was, going through anything that like this before. So yeah, immediately from the start, you feel, are we the only ones going through this? But then when you start going to the fertility clinic and you go to your appointments and you see the other couples in there, you soon realise that you're not the only people. But for me, trying to understand why I had this genetic problem, like why did I have this problem with my Y chromosome? I actually reached out to a charity that basically it supports people who've got rare and unique chromosome or diseases and stuff like that. And I reached out to them and I said, you fill out all your medical forms and basically they come back and they try and like partner you with other people who are similar. And I did it, and I got an email back saying there was no one that they could partner me with because it was so rare. Yeah. And at that point, I was just like, this was after my operation as well, so I was already in a really bad place. But then finding out there's no one from a unique rare chromosome charity that can even support you, and that's not their fault. I'm not saying it's their fault. It was just like, why me? Why me? Why am I this? What felt like one case. Yeah. It was awful. And then luckily I did find, the group that you've got on WhatsApp, and that massively helped. But at the point when I got that email saying there was no one there, no one that they could partner me with, it was just, what the hell is going on in my life at the minute?
Yeah, because I remember, for those that don't know, both Frank and Josh came on Series 3 of the Fertility podcast, and I remember you telling us that bit of information about you'd been to the charity. We had quite a long, in-depth conversation about it, about your feelings, and I'm sure we're going to get to that a little bit later on. But let's just swap to Frank quick. Frank, could you just give us a little bit of your background and experience in terms of fertility and how you felt when you were diagnosed?
Yeah, definitely. I think my wife and I, we had been sort of discussing, like you do, making plans. We'll find the jobs that we were together for a few years, started talking about the kind of jobs that we wanted, talked about moving in together, saved up, got a house or moved into a flat, and then sort of, a couple of years down the line, thinking about the fact that we're going to start a family and it would be the easiest, simplest thing in the world. When we first started trying to conceive, it didn't happen as quickly as we might have hoped. And my wife was kind of reading up on the NHS website and statistics about how quickly people should conceive, and it started to become quite stressful month on month. We actually had some friends that were trying to conceive at a similar time as well, and they had spoken to their doctors who had advised them, like, if they wanted a checkup, they needed to have waited between 18 and 24 months. So we contacted our GPs after 8 months and sort of said that we'd been trying for 18 months. Could we come in and get checked out? Because basically I'd been, my at the same time as this, my nan was seriously unwell. So I was kind of struggling with long-term illness and then ultimately bereavement as well. So I just had all this stress, and my wife and I thought it best if we just go and, rule things out, basically go and find out whether there was something wrong with either of us. But essentially we both felt that we'd just be going and ticking off that everything was fine. We didn't have to wait, because that sounds mental with everything that you described there, Josh, and having that referral and it taking 6 months. We actually got seen quite quickly. So mine from referral from the GP to go in and having my first semen analysis was only kind of a month and a half. And the results came back quite quickly. And I actually, weirdly, I got my results sent through by email and then got an offer of a call a week later. So I had my results and these numbers that I knew nothing about sort of just sat in my email inbox, and I was waiting to speak to a doctor. I'm in the mental health sector, and kind of my thing is the analysis and kind of conditions and things like that. You speak to a therapist, you speak to a clinician who can support you, GP, diagnose you. So I was waiting, but my wife kind of researched what these numbers meant. And we were sat having a meal at Nando's, just about to go to the cinema. And she sort of said, have you looked at these results? Like, do you know what they mean? And I said, no, I'm waiting for a doctor. And she said, look, they're really low. And they're under the kind of guided recommended numbers that sort of Google's saying. So the world kind of shattered, and I still then was kind of like, well, I'm not talking about this now. And I wanted to wait for that call. And actually then fast forward a week, we got this phone call, and it was from a doctor who wasn't a proper doctor. He was just kind of contacting everybody to let them know their results. So basically gave me as much information as my wife did. I had low motility, low semen, low motility, and some other numbers there. Morphology was low as well. So he basically said, look, with these numbers, I had 1.8 mil of semen. He said, with these numbers as low as they are, like, you can carry on trying, but it's highly unlikely that you will ever conceive naturally. And the next step for you would strongly recommend that you kind of go and speak to someone about IVF. That was it. There was no conversation around whether or not there was something that I could do. He said that we would be able to do some tests through the NHS and kind of check on whether there was something underlying with my genetics, but basically, like, get an appointment, go and see somebody and start planning NHS IVF. And I think my thing is always like, well, why? You know, so that feeling in Nando's was kind of instantly like, shit, you know, this is me letting down. We've had these conversations, and I'm letting her down. She's got all these big plans, and, you know, I wanted kids, and it's not going to happen for me or us, and it's my doing. And then the next thing is kind of like, but why? So why? And like, my dad's got kids. He's obviously had kids. My brother's got kids. My mates have got kids. You know, so why can't I have children? And then, yeah, basically struggling with that kind of guilt, struggling with that shame, and then not having a reason and being told that I'm probably not going to find out. And I think I really struggled. I really wanted to, like, put my finger on what it was. What was the cause? What was the effect? But because of the stress that we were under, like, we just went ahead. We started making plans for IVF, and yeah, we went straight in, saw a doctor. It was 2021 for us. It was right on the back of COVID. So we fortunately had some friends and family around that could support us financially, because the next thing, we were well aware that, you know, there wouldn't be an important meeting with a doctor for IVF, so that, you know, then we were concerned we didn't want to miss any important meetings, so went private. And again, at the clinic, they told us we were never going to find out. I had another semen analysis. They said, you know, they wouldn't be able to define the reasons and get the ball rolling on ICSI. So yeah, it was just a horrible feeling, and then with no explanation, basically seeing these numbers that I knew nothing about, but everyone was just directing me to, you know, go down the route of IVF. And as if that would be that was something that I wanted, but that wouldn't be the solution, because I still had this infertility.
Yeah, what you're saying there, mate, is so common, and it's really sad that it is. Like, men are receiving their results in an almost unprofessional way sometimes. They're just kind of left with these results that you don't know what they mean. And it leaves you with the big question of why, you know, because if you can sit with a doctor and at least discuss them when you initially get them, you can ask the questions to begin the process of understanding why. You might need additional tests, you might need additional things, but it's a big, big player. that first initial contact and that first initial delivery of those results. Do you think that if you received them in terms of called back into a clinic and discussed, do you think that would have helped you on maybe start the process of understanding why?
Yeah, definitely. I think the kind of art of a phone call with somebody who can start to talk about those in a bit more detail, and then have a conversation about what are some of the things that you can do. So knowing now, fast forward a couple of years, having had conversations in the community, I know that there's the potential of having an ultrasound and seeing if there's an issue there. Varicocele, you can have an operation to remove the varicocele or whatever, intensively or not, non-intrusive or intrusively, and that can take 4 to 6 months to recover. Having some options as to what we could do, trying to do a bit more finding out would have been really helpful, I think. And it's something that I've kind of stuck to myself, and we've been offered an appointment. I mean, I don't know how far you want me to go at this point, but I kept on asking the NHS for appointments, and I kept on cancelling them. And I kept on saying, I wanted to go, I wanted to find things out. And then the more people that I spoke to in the community kind of offered different things as well, different advice. And I just think that it would have been a kind of 5-10 minute conversation, a couple of leaflets, and a bit of maybe a website, go and check this out, and then we'll have a conversation again. That's all I needed at that time. But I think that was the start of feeling really lonely in the whole process as well. I couldn't pick off any mates to have a conversation about. I was worried about how much I could talk to my wife. She was obviously she had a real listening ear, but at the same time, the more I talked about it, the more it was apparent that it was me that was the issue. And so, that feeling of loneliness, like, okay, the doctors aren't going to put an arm around the shoulder or kind of give me a bit more info, and I'm not getting it anywhere else. And that kind of was the whole way through my process, I think.
I mean, you hit it on the head there. I think you've explained it perfectly in terms of if the first part of the diagnosis or delivery of that, and then you can't get additional support from the professionals that have delivered the news, it kind of from the wrong tracks, doesn't it? And so, we kind of almost self-diagnosed your own trigger for why you went down the road you did in terms of mental health wise. Josh, when you first got your diagnosis, obviously you talked about being frustrated, hungry. How did it unravel the first few weeks? And was there anything, now looking back, that surprised you in terms of how you responded?
I think so I remember I was laid up in bed after the operation. As whoever's had the operation, you have to be in bed, don't you, for a few days after it. And I was just anticipating, waiting for the call. And it's really funny what Frank's just said about not being explained stuff, because the embryologist literally rung me. It was 2 days after she rung me, and she just gone, really sorry, Mr. Coulson, we've not found anything. See you later. That was basically the call. A few little words either side, but no explanation or anything. Really blunt call. And then it just sort of felt like I'd just entered like a really dark room. No one in there, just me with this embryologist on the call. Don't remember hearing anything else that she was saying. And I've just sort of come back around, trying to understand what she said. Finished the call, and then just completely broke down, laid up in bed, bollocks the size of melons, just all emotions going through me. My wife was sat beside me as well. She started crying. We were just sort of, we always wanted children from when we first got together, and then at that point it was like, this is a roadblock, and it's like, are we going to actually be able to have children of our own? And we were just absolutely heartbroken at that moment. Was there anything that surprised me? I think obviously I knew obviously there was a 50-50 chance that they would find something or they wouldn't find something. So I knew that there was a really good chance that it could be bad news. So I thought I had prepared myself enough for that bad news, just by like, not getting my hopes up, which is really easy to do, isn't it? I think anyone can get the hopes up. You always think about the good things, don't you? But for me, it was like, right, just don't get them up. Let's just do the operation, see what's what. But definitely surprised me how I reacted to that news, even though I knew it was, there was 50% chance that it was going to be bad. And then the next few days after that were just probably the worst of my life. Just feeling completely useless. Not being able to reproduce and be a biological father was just everything that was going through my head. Not being able to give my wife children that we'd always talked about, always wanted. Felt really, really guilty. I didn't want to do anything, which is very unlike me. Didn't really want to talk, again, unlike me. Just really didn't expect to feel as low as what I did, even though I thought I'd prepared for it. It would just hit me like a ton of bricks, and nothing in life can prepare you for stuff like that, for moments like that. So, but I obviously thought that I had prepared for it well enough, but clearly not. Things just got worse and worse over the next 6 weeks for me.
Yeah, I think a lot of guys are surprised by how they respond, because you do think you are prepared, but it's a massive knock on your identity as a man, isn't it? And
absolutely, yeah.
That kind of first realization, well, not even realization, the first bit of news that you get that really for you was like, this is. At that time, it would have felt like you've almost suddenly hit the end of the road before you'd started, and obviously we know more now in terms of other things that can be done, but it's I would say that from your reflection there, what surprised you was definitely how you responded, but it was a very positive response in some way, because some guys just lock it up, and the fact that you actually had you could emotionally let go of it, even if it was just in front of your partner, your wife. It's a really positive thing to do, even though it might not feel like it at the time.
I think for me though, it was so my wife's a teacher, and that was at the back end of the 6-week holidays. So she then went back to work, not knowing how bad I was, how much of a dark place I was in, and then. So I was basically just at home by myself, just in a really, really bad state. And she came home one day and she found me battered and bruised, and it's stuff that I'd done to myself. Yeah. And that was a massive surprise. I never, ever thought I would be someone to do that to myself, or to be in that low of a position and feel that shit about yourself.
Sorry, I was going to say, do you think the loneliness of like your wife,
Yeah. So after she'd sort of found me in this state when she came home, she then, I laugh about it now because sometimes you've got to, but she kind of created a thing called Josh Watch, which is not something to laugh about really, but it is quite funny thinking about it. So basically, I was watched 24/7. My parents and my wife. So my wife came home on a lunch. My mum and dad came over first thing in the morning. Then when my wife went back to work, they'd stay with me until she got back, and it was like that for a few weeks. And to be fair, it helped massively because obviously it didn't do anything stupid. But then, in a way, it kind of made me a bit worse, thinking I brought my family into all this. My mum and dad are now worried about me. That I do not want to put that stress on them. But then my wife was just looking out for me. She just wanted me to be okay. But yeah, it was a really, really, really bad time.
Yeah, a lot of emotion.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's really hard to talk about. It might seem easy, but even like every time I talk about, which is not that often. It, you know, it brings back all like those memories of how you feel and stuff. But
yeah,
it's it wasn't the finest point of my life.
no, but thanks for being so open about it, mate. You know, I know how personally hard it is to talk about how you're feeling. You know, I got to a very similar point in my journey. You know, I do talk openly about it, and even though I'm fine now, I still, when I talk about certain things, I always describe it as that little bit of darkness comes back, you know, and it will always probably be with me. But I kind of know how to deal with it now. You know, I've got it under control, and but that's just. I think that's like a normal thing to feel as well. Like that, if you've been through something that's kind of shaking you to the core, as you did, and as I did, and obviously Frank did as well. It's when you do think about it, it's normal to have those slight feelings of darkness or sadness, deep sadness linked to it. Yeah. But thanks so much for being open about it, mate. We really do appreciate it. And I'm sure the guys listening to this now and in the future will appreciate your honesty, because once again, sometimes you feel like you're the only one that feels like this. And
yeah, absolutely.
You're definitely not. Definitely not. Frank, mate, how why do you've kind of answered this slightly, but I would like to go into a bit more depth about it. Why do you think your diagnosis hit you so hard? And was there like any pressure for you to kind of maintain like this a manly perception of yourself to the outside world?
First of all, Josh, like that is exceptional the way that you've discussed that just so openly. It's such a powerful, like really, really, I mean, I know the title of this, but really brave being able to share that just like a normal discussion point. It's really amazing, mate. But yeah, for me, I think with that pressure, like that's exactly it. I put myself under just huge amounts of pressure from the off. And I think the other thing that I was thinking of, every single time I had an appointment, a different analysis, whatever it was, I put hope that this result would be different. And every time I went in there and I just thought, no, do you know what? It's a mistake. The last one was a mistake. The last two were a mistake. The last three, like this is the one. And I think as that time went on, I was so aware of like what you should and shouldn't do. What are you eating? What are you drinking? Hot baths, you know, running. And so every time I wanted to do something to de-stress, it would be something that you're probably not allowed to do. So I was just thinking about it 24/7. And I think then the kind of, I've got weirdly, so I work for a mental health charity. So actually at the time I told my manager that I was going for some appointments, and he basically just said, you know, normal face, whatever you need, do what you need. I'm here if you want to talk about it. I had a coach, like a coactive coach that I was talking to as well. So I was talking about it, but the people that mattered, my dad, my brother, my best mates, I put off for so long. And I put off for so long because I knew that there would be, not necessarily because of them, but this is a topic that's difficult for us blokes to talk about. So the first thing that we do is a bit of banter, try and make an uncomfortable situation or conversation comfortable. And I knew it was going to come, and I didn't want to be the butt of anyone's jokes. And I told my dad, and he made an uncomfortable joke. And I told my brother, and he did the same thing. And I told my mate, and he asked me, do you feel any less of a man? And I was like, yeah, I feel like all the weight and expectations of what being a bloke, and especially in this relationship where we're talking about having kids, go to work, get money, provide, move in somewhere, start a family. Like ultimately, I know it's 2025 and some of those things have changed, but yeah, so there was pressure, and I just put an enormous amount on myself. And actually, after those initial banter bits with the family and friends, I was able to talk about it a little more. But no one's asking you how you're, has there been any change in your infertility? Like, has there been any appointments? You have to step up and say that. So it takes a lot to kind of change the conversation to come back round to you. And so, yeah, there was pressure. I had hope every time, but I think I just also felt like I couldn't really say as much as I wanted to anyone about it.
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? It really is tough. The people closest to you are often the people you find it hardest to have those conversations with. And exactly for what you've just said, in some way they do want to help, but you kind of anticipate that they're not going to know the right thing to say, and it's going to be brushed off, or it's going to be brushed under the table. And when in theory, all sometimes you just need to hear is, okay, thanks for telling me, I'm here if you need me. Something as simple as that. But too often it is, guys. I think men, you said it perfectly, Frank. We kind of cover it up with humour, and sometimes it's just not good enough and not what we need. How did you start, like, rebuilding? What was that? Let's take a step back. Actually, did you find that affected your relationship with those key family members? And then how did you kind of rebuild your confidence in that area, and maybe that bit of relationship with them? Because so many guys say that it's affected a relationship and they're not quite sure what to do about it.
It's a great. I picked and choose who I spoke to. I got really close, like spoke daily with mum. I cried in front of mum. My wife and I, I am really lucky. She never put any pressure on me. Like, the whole time was asking, what did I want to do, and was I okay? And what did I need? And she was looking on, different Facebook groups or support groups for information. And like I said, I was I work for a mental health organisation, so I kind of am aware of grief, trauma, processing, those sorts of things. Different, obviously, when it's you, or like myself having to go through it. But I think that I started to talk about it more openly with my coach. I don't know whether that was something that I paid for, and was doing fairly regularly. So I wasn't putting that pressure on me to kind of have those conversations with my wife, because she was obviously feeling as stressed as I was, with my family, because they obviously, they wanted to help, but they didn't know how. So I kind of spoke about it in a bit more of a forum where I could. But if I'm honest, and to fast forward, I hadn't really processed it. I'd spoken about it briefly, but it wasn't until a year or two later that I did a comedy course, comedy for thought course, which was just for blokes and a safe space. And I basically, in that first session, she said, I'd never done comedy before. She said, try and think of anything that you would like to talk about. And it just spilled out of me. So the whole time I thought I was doing all right. I thought I was talking to people and picking and choosing when, but I hadn't even started. So it wasn't until 2 years later that I realised how much I'd actually just held on to. And then, through this comedy for thought course and this safe space with 12 other blokes in a room, talking about, comedians that share things, finding out different comedians that also talked about their infertility. And then it felt kind of normal to be able to share it. And it was like what I've been worried about for so long. But throughout the process, it was just such a stressful time. And actually, if I'm honest, because I know it's different for everybody else, but when we went to those private clinics and they didn't really give me any emotion, they just said, you turn up on this day and do this, and we will try and get you, what you hope to get. I think that really helped, because actually I just needed somebody to kind of push me and direct me in what way to go.
It's incredible, that, really, if you think about it. Like, you speaking to your family, you're worried about the jokes that might be made and things like that, but actually humour helped you through it in the end. Like, it shows how powerful it can be in the right hands, but also just how demoralising it can be if said in the wrong way. It's an interesting.
You want to be the owner of it. That's what I found. I didn't want people to say things about me. That's what I was worried about. But me saying it about myself, chucking it out there, meant that, it meant that they couldn't say anything harmful, I think. And that's when I started to really get rid of all the things that I was holding on to, because it was me that was owning it. But I know that that's really difficult for people. And yeah, it's not, that was certainly something that helped me. It's not going to help everybody though.
Yeah, and you've definitely got to be at a certain level of acceptance to turn humour on yourself and laugh about a situation. I mean, you look at all the great comedy sketches or individuals, comedians, they use bad situations to say that, well, it's not going to win. This situation isn't going to win. I will prevail, whatever they're going to talk about. But you have to be at a certain state to be able to do that. No, man, it's an interesting story in terms of that kind of journey that you went on there, and a perfect demonstration of how something can be used both positively and negatively. Josh, you've talked previously about the guilt and shame that you felt. How did you start to take control of that again? Because it's one thing I think a lot of men really struggle with. I held on to it for ages, like literally years, before I got to crisis point and I had to deal with it before, or other things were going to happen. Like, can you kind of pinpoint a moment that really helped you, or something that helped you kind of get back on the right path?
Yeah. So for me, I had an operation in August, and then I went back to work in October just to try and get some normality back into my life. Kind of sick of all the sadness and everything like that. So I decided to go back to work. Looking back now, it was probably the wrong thing to do. Went back a bit too early. I didn't feel supported that much from work when I went back. But life goes on, doesn't it? And then it got to about December time, and I'd put on a lot of weight just from being depressed. And I've always been an active person. Love my football. Got into running. And earlier that year earlier in 2023, I finished completed my first marathon. Loved it. Loved the training. Gave me accountability and something to work towards. So I was just rubbish. I was just sick of feeling rubbish. Signed up to the next marathon in Leeds, and that basically just got my head screwed on. And probably at that point, so I started my training end of January 24. Slowly started rebuilding Josh. We were at the same time, though, we were still having difficult conversations with donor conception counsellors and stuff like that. So everything was still going on. Probably even more difficult conversations, because we were now deciding on donors. What are we going to do? Having these counselling sessions, but it sounds so simple, doesn't it? But getting back to exercise was a massive thing for me to be like, right, this is me rebuilding myself. But then the biggest thing, and the biggest thing that's basically helped me get back to myself is my wife. No doubt about it. All the exercise, that's great, but having a strong missus at the side of you, she's been there for me every step of the way, and without her, I don't know what state I'd have been in.
Yeah, I can echo that. It really helps to have a strong partner next to you. Yeah, my wife definitely saved my life. Yeah, and part of it,
it's crazy saying that.
Yeah, and part of it was there was a massive part of me that wanted to know that she was okay the way I was, and I needed, even though I knew it was there, I needed to really know her acceptance of the situation as much as I needed that before I could move on.
Yeah.
I had to, even though she'd tell me all the time,
because I'm there, like I'm there put all the situation that we're in is because of me. All that guilt that I'm feeling and everything, and it's like, we're going to the clinic every other month because of me.
Yeah.
I'm giving you a trigger injection because of me. You know, you're getting headaches because you're taking tablets, you're taking medication. It's all because of me. And for her to still be there at the side of me going, come on, Josh, you can do this. You can get back to your normal self. We can get through this. Like, what a woman.
Yeah. And it's they really shouldn't underestimate how important they are in this situation. And I think I think sometimes that's the guys not communicating that as well, because of a fear that if I let's talk about what happened in my situation, for example. I said to my wife, you can leave if you want, you know, and that was what I remember sitting on the sofa. I'm thinking about it now. I'm not getting proper choked up about it, but it's, yeah, you kind of sat on the sofa and I said to her, you can leave. And she just turned and said, no, I'm here for you. And it's a real thing, lads, you know, really hard.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, man. You know, even now, like we're talking like, what, 9 years ago? We had that conversation. I still think about it. And in that conversation, a bridge was built that would never get knocked down. You know? Yeah. So talk to your partners. It can really help, lads, really help.
You said there, like, acceptance and that non-judgmental piece. I think at the beginning of this journey, she found James O'Brien, who we both quite like. James O'Brien was infertile and had been through treatment, and she kind of shared his story and said, you know, from the off, she was just like, whatever we need to do.
Yeah.
This is us, you know, we're in it together. This is our problem. It's not your problem. And actually, yeah, throughout then, it made one less thing for me to think about. Though I knew that obviously it was stressful for her. So, yeah, it's so important. But yeah, there's that just non-judgmental piece, the only one that you can really rely on. And like you say, Josh summarised it there. Everything that we went through was all, you know, when I'm saying it's me, and she's just like, no, this is us. We're doing this together. We want this. So we'll go through whatever's needed. Yeah, incredible.
I got to a point where I keep on asking her, like, do you want me to come to appointments with you? Because I don't know if she just wants to go on her own, do you know? But she's like, nope, you're coming with me. We're in this together. But I always ask. I always ask the question because she might think, no, yeah, I'll go on my own today. And that'd be fine if she said that. But no, Josh, you're coming with me. We're in this together.
Yeah. It's an incredibly it's a bonding thing, and that like in a strange, weird, other reality way, it makes or break relationship. And if you're strong enough and you get through it, it creates a bond that will never be broken. It kind of ruins the next question I had for you, Josh, which was, how did this impact your relationship? Because we've just gone through it, but I think it's been answered perfectly. Let's kind of, I will ask you one question about your relationship. When you were going through it, what changes did occur? Because I think that's something that a lot of men are in denial with. Like, for example, me and my wife were a lot less intimate initially because you have fears around that, and you kind of feel a bit more distant because you don't feel as much as a man. I didn't hug her as much. I didn't kiss her as much. You know, we didn't have sex as much. Those kind of things that would generally just be everyday things. Not that we're having sex every day, but you know what I mean? It's those things that you do automatically. I drifted apart. What things happened to you in your relationship? If there's anything you can pick out, it might be that you know nothing changed much.
Look, all this has definitely impacted our relationship, but at no point has our relationship ever been on the rocks. We've had disagreements about things and everything, but the intimacy stuff's real. Like for the guys listening, it does ruin it. Really sorry to say to everyone, but it does. And I'll take you right back to the start of our journey. Before we even knew that I had no sperm, my wife was doing ovulation sticks, and I just felt like a performing seal. And it's just and people listening might think, oh, that's good. Not good. Honestly, not good. Just not enjoyable. Not enjoyable. And then flip it to now, like nearly 4 years later. Yes, there's less of it, but like, look at what we've gone through. Do you know what I mean? Look at everything that we've gone through. Like, we can't conceive naturally. And I know sex isn't just about conceiving naturally, but obviously, like, when you're trying to start a family, that's what you want to happen. It takes, you know, that comes away from it. It does mess. It does mess with your intimacy, and that's probably one thing that has impacted the most in our relationship. But it's not the end of the world, is it?
No, it's almost a process you go through. I think it's kind of it's a side effect of the treatment, of going through the journey. If that makes sense, it's like, in some ways it's unavoidable, because everyone I talk to says, yeah, it's impacted it. And you mentioned there about, you know, sex and intimacy. I think part of being a man is like, you know, you have sex and you get a baby from it. It's an important part of that process. And when your identity's hit, it's almost like that's another a bit of the puzzle that's taken away. It's like, I can't do it, so what's the point? Like, that's how I got to do. It was like, well, it no longer became pleasurable, so and it didn't have a purpose, so we stopped in certain aspects. You
do feel less of a man, don't you?
Yeah.
You're not. Everyone listening, you're not. But but that is the feelings that I had, and it just takes away that sex drive.
Yeah.
But on a positive note, in terms of what things did change in our relationship, we communicate so much better now. I'm like one that will probably overshare at times, whereas my wife is, you know, she finds it hard to show lots of emotion. But now we have, since going through all this, we communicate way better. So we tell each other how we're feeling, and you know, look, as men, we like to go into solution mode, don't we? And sometimes it's just about listening to them. And I think that's, you know, that's reciprocated from both sides now, and that's made us, especially in our communication side of things, definitely changed for the better.
Yeah. It's definitely a positive thing that comes from it.
Yeah.
Even though my wife surprisingly still doesn't hear things when I really need her to. You know, I did tell you I was doing that on Friday night. You didn't. Maybe that was just part of being married. I haven't figured that one out yet. Frank, mate, how did it affect your relationship? And let's look at it on a positive thing. How's it made your relationship stronger, and what helped you to maintain that positive relationship?
I mean, echoing what you just said there, basically, for me, I definitely can't perform under pressure. In terms of it being positive, I think we can do the big stuff like so ridiculously easy now. I think it really has helped us just to get onto a complete level where we know we've got each other's back, and getting through that, you know, there's been some other things that we've found difficult, but I think we're really on the same page. Protective of each other in conversations, like ready to big the other one up. You know, I sometimes I'm out with friends and I can hear, like, you know, the boyfriend or whatever kind of making jokes about the girlfriend, and we never do that anymore. It's always, if you walk into a room and she's chatting to her mates, it's kind of bigging me up. And with these sorts of things, she would ask, like, you know, I've spoken to this person and they've made some suggestions. Do you want to talk about them? So just giving me options of whether it's the right time or not. And with family, like, I know that, you know, I speak to my family, speak to mum, but she really does, like, she's really close with her mum.
Yeah.
And so they speak fairly, you know, they'll speak fairly regularly, and going through this, certainly going, you know, speaking regularly. But again, she would just ask. set the boundaries of, you know, what she was going to be talking to them about. And it made me part of it. It made, you know, I was more than happy then. I was open to, I knew that was a release for her. Being able to have conversations, you know, 2, 3 in the morning, phoning up her mum to have conversations, or during the day, like, I knew that was something that she needed. But those first kind of initial time where we were discussing it, like, are you happy for me to share your results with my mum, just meant that I was part of that. It wasn't just, you know, uncomfortable for me. Those little things. And I think now, you know, you go, yeah, like I say, you go through something like this, and just, although I'm having all of those feelings about, you know, being unable to do things that men should be able to do, she just never once put that on me either. And I think that kind of really stands the test of time. I think, still find the small things difficult sometimes on the day to day. Big stuff, we've got it down to
that small communication. That's exactly what I'm going on about. I did tell you to stop and get this from the shops.
Yeah.
No, I don't think you did. No. Once again, it comes down to just that, it strengthens that communication bond, doesn't it? And the fact you have each other's back, whatever happens. Like, there's things that happened in our lives since, and I'm like, I'm not totally sure if you're right, Jen. I'd never say that to her, but I'd back her because of everything we've been through. You know, I'd walk through fire for the woman, and it's because of exactly what you've just described there. They had your back when you needed it the most, and it's an incredible, powerful thing. Frank, why do you think men are reluctant to initially get support? Do you think it's the stigma linked to men talking? Obviously, this is almost your workspace in a way, isn't it? The mental health side of things. What's your experience of that? Both your personal, but maybe also professional, because I'm sure you can draw on that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's obviously a stigma attached to it. I hear so often that men don't talk, but I've been to, like I said, about the Comedy for Thought piece. You know, that was a safe space. That was around comedy. That was something that men they all know which comedians are their favourite, and then they're put in a safe space with some good activities. They're happy to talk. There's a wonderful guy that's doing music, football, fatherhood, where I went to the Emirates Stadium with 70 other blokes that were more than happy to kind of share how emotional they feel day to day.
Yeah.
It was a safe space. I think that if we're asking them in a difficult place, you know, how they're feeling, we're asking them somewhere where they feel uncomfortable, they're not likely to answer. I think that, like I said before, like, no one's asking you about your mental health. No one's asking you about your fertility when you're down the pub or in a coffee shop with your mates. You know, you need to make that first step. And I think that becomes really difficult for people to do. That non-judgmental, and often, you know, we're kind of holding on to that ourselves. I think for me, this whole being part of the community came from doing that Comedy for Thought, and I shared a minute worth of material, 7 minutes worth of material that I did into one of the kind of support groups at the time, and someone got in touch and said, you know, I'd really like to talk to me about it. And then from there, I was introduced to yourself and Ciaran, and ultimately then I was able to ask questions that weren't ridiculous things, that, like, people that had experienced it themselves, or again had kind of supported other people. And so in this community, you can ask what you want and no one bats an eyelid. You know, what we've shared tonight, you know, we feel it's kind of, not only a safe space, but for me, part of sharing was part of how I processed, part of how I dealt with it is by talking about it, by writing about it, by feeling like it's that moment where I went in to do my first semen analysis, where there was no eye contact with anybody, there was no leaflets. I went in, I did what I needed to do, I left without them telling me, you know, where I could get more information, without them telling me where I could get help. If at that time there was a thing on the wall saying, this group of guys, you know, there's patient advocates, there's people, medical advocates, you can attend these groups and you can listen to XYZ, like, go and listen to the podcast. I mean, it would have taken no time at all for me to think, oh, well, I can talk about this comfortably. Like, it's okay. I don't need to worry about how my dad and my brother are going to feel about it, even though they've never experienced it before. Because there's people there. So there's a couple of things. I think we just need to put things on where blokes do feel comfortable, do more where they feel it's a safe space. Because if you get those conversations and there is no judgment, then people do share.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for your kind words, mate. When me and Sean set out on this, even when we started sharing our own personal stories, I remember saying, before I knew Sean, speaking to my wife again, I was like, if I can help one person just to feel like they're not alone, I've done my job. And we're in a very privileged position now where we can help loads of guys, and it's what it comes down to is the fact of we are social animals, humans, and when you get a diagnosis of infertility, you suddenly don't belong to any group, or you don't feel like you do, and you're struggling to find that. And that's one of the reasons why we created the Nexus community. It was to give guys a safe place that they can come and do exactly what you've just said, mate. So yeah, one of the main reasons is people don't talk. Guys don't talk because they feel they've got nowhere to talk.
Yeah,
no one's going to understand. And then that itself can lead down a very deep, dark rabbit hole, as we've discussed tonight, haven't we? Josh, do you have any other kind of thoughts on why guys don't talk, or why you found it initially hard to talk?
Yeah, so from a personal point of view, so one of the hardest things I did was go and seek support. After my wife had found me in that state, she just said to me, she went, "You're getting help." She didn't say, "Go get help." She didn't tell me, like, "You need help." She went, "You're getting it." I rang my GP, said I needed an appointment, but didn't give a reason why. And I remember like driving there, and I was just absolutely terrified. And I'll say it again, I'm someone that could open up really easily, but for some reason I just felt sick to the stomach. I'd spoke to this doctor before that I saw, so she sort of knew my situation. I had a little bit of a cry on the phone to her a couple of weeks before. Anyway, I'd driven to the doctor's, cap on, sunglasses on. My face was all beaten up. I didn't want her to see it. And I was just like, I remember just sweating. My hands were just sweating, waiting for her to call me in. And I do remember thinking, why am I like this? Like, I'm trying to help myself here. She called me in, sat on the chair, and she just went, "How can I help?" And I just didn't say anything, and I couldn't speak, couldn't get any words out. And I just said to her, I said, it felt about 20 minutes I were in there, probably only about 15 seconds, and I just said, "I need help. I've done something really bad." And I took my hat off, took my glasses off, and I think as soon as I said those words and she hadn't even responded, I felt like 100 stone lighter. So for anyone listening, if anyone does get to that stage, right, just go and speak to someone about it. That feeling within a split second of just saying those words of "I need help" were an absolute game changer for me. She immediately gave me the crisis team number, which thankfully I didn't need. She, without any hesitation, started typing up my referral to see a mental health practitioner. And I left that GP surgery a different person. And all I'd said is, "I need help." And the bit I felt before that, I can completely understand why men wouldn't go and do that. But my advice is go and bloody do it.
Yeah.
It's just it will either save your life, but it'll definitely change your life. So I completely get why people wouldn't do it, but it was one of the hardest things that I've had to do. But thank God that I did it.
Yeah.
It's the whole male thing, though, isn't it? Like, I don't need to go speak to someone. I don't need to go do that. That's weakness. Well, do you know what? If no one knows you're going, what does it matter?
Yeah, and you can flip it. Now I kind of look at it and flip it the other way now. Like, weakness is not going, because you haven't got the strength to face it, and you should do it for the if if you're at the point of not understanding why, do it for the people around you that really rely on you as well. Like I found that a strength when I needed it. You know, my wife needed me. But yeah, man, when you first kind of openly say it to someone, like, I need help, I am not good, a professional that can give you that help, it is like a ton of bricks being taken off your shoulders. And whether that's in your GP or in therapy, whatever way, find what's right for you, because it is incredibly powerful.
Yeah, it is. It's a very powerful. It is a very powerful moment, and not in a way. All you're saying is 3 words: "I need help."
Yeah.
But I like everything just sort of changed for me at that minute. At that moment, it was, you know, like, lump in my throat had gone. I felt a different person. I felt relaxed. It was definitely a game changer. It honestly, doing that. I'm not sitting here going, I'm a really strong person, but doing that is definitely a strength. You know, if you asking your partner for help, asking one of your friends for help, your GP, like, you know, like you say, if they're not even medical professionals, as long as you're asking for help, it's a strength. Is that saying that you're struggling is not a weakness.
Yeah, no, 100% it's not. And reaching out to anyone, you know, if you even dropping something on the Nexus chat saying, oh, guys, I need some support. Anyone got any ideas? It's just that first step. The first step is, you know, it's always the hardest because you don't know how it's going to be received. But if you're talking to professionals and you're talking to people in a similar community that have been there, you're only going to get a positive response. So yeah, it's the hardest step, but it's the most important in terms of rebuilding.
Definitely.
But lads, I think we've covered a lot tonight, and it's been fantastic having you on. Like, I've really appreciated your openness, and we can see it like in the chat. Like, the guys have really appreciated this. So thanks so much. I think it's something we can do more on, and I hope we can. The 3 of us in the future. It's definitely something we want to focus more in relation on Nexus about, you know, that mental health, that mental support, because it is devastating news. And when you first dealt the card of infertility, no one knows what to do. You know, we've got to look at the education we're giving the youngsters in schools. We've got to look at the support networks available for the guys out there. There's so much to be done, but it's things like this that is truly helping. So thanks so much for coming on, lads. What I'm going to finish with is just like one final bit of advice from each of you. So let's go with Frank first. So Frank, if you could just give one bit of advice to a guy that is struggling with his mental health in relation to fertility, just general, man. Like, this is a topic that we need to discuss generally, isn't it? What advice would you give him?
Everyone's situation, but I guess it's such a stressful time that either, you know, if you're not ready to open up and start talking about it, there's an opportunity to listen. There's an opportunity to hear from people who are sharing their personal story. But do not forget the things that you enjoyed doing before this horrible, you know, part of the journey. Like Josh said, he did a marathon. You know, I did a marathon. It might not be the marathons for you, but if you really love running, there's certain things I think you've just got to keep on doing, even if you know, like, loads of running might be incredibly or not great for you. It's just trying to make sure that you're still doing something for your well-being and your mental health as well. That is impacted just as much as the physical. So yeah, I think there's that communication piece. If you're not ready to talk, have a listen. There's people who've kind of lived experience that are happy to kind of talk and share. There's podcasts out there, but keep on doing the things that you enjoyed as much as possible.
Yeah, that's perfect advice, mate. I think that's one of the first things that goes, isn't it? The things that you actually make you feel better, you stop doing. You know? So yeah, just keep doing those because it helps keep you in the frame. How about you, Josh? What would your bit of advice be?
Frank's advice is the best one, to be fair. It is really important. Well said. My advice is like more to the point, really, of fertility journeys. So it'd be buckle up. It's going to be tough. but I promise you that you're not alone. Things can get better with the support. You're stronger than what you think. I'm definitely a stronger person coming out of this. And you can and you will get through whatever the situation throws at you. With the support out there, use it.
Yeah. I think I could echo both of what you just said. It's thanks so much, lads, for being open and honest on it, because it is a tough subject to talk about. And as we've discussed, it's hard, but at the same point, so many positive things can come out of it in terms of knowing yourself more and also having a stronger relationship with your partner and yourself in the end. So it's been a pleasure. If anyone would like any additional information on how to get support, obviously go to your doctors, but also obviously contact us at Nexus Fertility. Listen to the Male Fertility podcast. If it's that you're not ready to talk, you've got that first bit of listen to content, and you can do it privately, so no one's listening or knows what you're listening to. But that's it for tonight. So until the next time, thanks for coming on, lads. I really appreciate it, and we'll speak to you soon.
Cheers.
See you later.
Have a good one. Bye.
You too.